Hello and welcome to the NBA Outlet presented by OTGBasketball.com. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, Kory Waldron. And today we are talking Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Kory, how are we today?
Hold my beer. I'm going to have to go in on this one.
Yeah, this was an interesting game that obviously I don't think many people expected at all. Maybe some Boston homers, but 108-83, Celtics win Game 1. Not a good performance from the Cavs and maybe one of the best performances from the Celtics this postseason. But before we get started, just a quick reminder, you can catch all of our game recaps. We're going to be recapping the Eastern Conference Finals, Western Conference Finals, all on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, OTGBasketball.com, and Google Play. But Kory, what were your thoughts on Game 1? Just like your initial reaction, seeing the score and everything that happened this one.
I mean, stunned by the lack of effort from the Cavs, the disengagement. What was it, 29-9, the initial start? They just look flat. And, you know, I always love those NBA videos they put out beforehand with like LeBron stretching and he goes, you know, LeBron's locked in, ready to go. I mean, he wasn't ready to go. I mean, you can just look at the box score and see that there was no Cavalier ready to go. The Celtics, you know, they're coming off a lot of momentum. Obviously, they were favored, I think, over the Bucks, but they were underdogs to the Sixers. They're underdogs by 1.5 points in this Game 1. And, you know, they came out firing all cylinders.
Yeah, I think the energy and the effort level was something you noticed right from the first quarter. You mentioned it, you know, a big change in the first quarter, 36-18. Anytime you start a game with a big lead like that for a young team like the Celtics, being probably the underdog in this series, you know, some people have them as the favorite, but, you know, we'll see what happens. 36-18 is a big jump. And you could see off the initial first couple possessions, even some of the possessions the Cavs scored on, Boston was getting their hands in there, deflection, tips, some tough shots. And then on the Cavs side, you know, not only was the effort bad, but the engagement wasn't great. They were missing wide open shots. Shooting wise, it was a pretty pitiful performance. You know, 36% from the field, 15% from three, 4 of 26. Kind of reminds you a little bit of Game 1 of the Pacers series, but probably a little worse on the Cavs end.
Yeah, I think what stood out the most is the fact that obviously, like, the role players for Cleveland, we know they're inconsistent. You know, we know J.R. Smith going for 2 for 9 isn't out of the realm of possibilities. We know he's streaky. Kevin Love obviously has had his struggles. So him going 5 for 14 isn't a struggle. The eye-popping thing is LeBron going 5 for 16, 0 for 5 from 3, and having 7 turnovers. You know, that's something we haven't really seen from LeBron all postseason. Even on games where the Cavs have lost to the Pacers, you know, LeBron, for the most part, still got his. This was the first time we've seen LeBron, you know, truly struggle in a postseason game this year.
And his energy and effort level wasn't very high. And that's not something you usually say about LeBron. You know, sometimes he gets lazy on transition defense, but overall offensively, there was a play where Marcus Smart just kind of like was defending him and LeBron almost let him steal the ball. Like There was a couple plays where you saw LeBron and it was just like, you know, this is not something we're accustomed to seeing. Then there was other plays where he showed the flashes. I think in the first half, he drove on Semi Ojeleye, gave him like a body real quick, got the lay-in, but you really didn't see much of that. So how much do you think that was the Celtics defense or just LeBron, you know, not being all there today?
I mean, I have to give some credit to the Celtics defense. I mean, right from the jump, Marcus Morris was being extremely physical with them. You know, they threw a lot of different guys out. It wasn't just Marcus Morris, but they threw a lot of guys at him. They gave him a ton of different looks. You know, Jaylen Brown got some time on him. Marcus Smart got some time. Al Horford, you know, and everyone played him very physical. And, you know, plus being a little sloppy, everybody else, I don't know. I think LeBron was kind of just caught off guard to a degree, which is something you just don't see often.
Yeah, he was a little bit off guard. The effort wasn't all there. And like you said, Celtics D, not only were the defenders physical and up in his face, they didn't really allow him to relax, but similar to the Pacers series, it looked like all 5 Celtics were keyed in on LeBron. You know, it always felt like somebody was coming over for the help and LeBron had to watch his 6 at all times. And they really forced the other Cavs to beat them, which, you know, doesn't always work when they, you know, when they're hitting their shots. But today when they were ice cold, it looked like the perfect game plan.
Yeah, and we also saw LeBron have a team worst plus minus of -32, I believe.
Yeah, which is one of the rarest things you might ever see.
Worst plus minus ever in the playoffs, if I saw a tweet right at the end. So that's just something LeBron's he just struggled, you know, and I don't see him having this kind of performance in Game 2. I think it's one of those games where he just struggled, and I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see it again in the rest of the series. But Brad Stevens and company did a tremendous job locking him down.
Yeah, and it's going to be not only up to LeBron to play better, but I think a lot of it's going to be on his teammates to hit their shots. Just to start off the game in the first quarter, I want to say Kyle Korver missed two wide open threes. JR missed a wide open shot. Guys need to hit their wide open shot so it can take some pressure off LeBron. If they're not hitting anything, like I said, 4 of 26 from three is giving him zero spacing and allowing guys like Al Horford to come with the help, Aaron Baines to come with the help. And that's something that's going to make LeBron's life a lot more difficult in the rest of the series if no one's going to hit their shots.
Yeah, and in the second half too, we saw LeBron starting to settle for some 3-pointers. And I didn't even know this till someone tweeted the stat. He's shooting 26.3% from three this postseason. I wasn't even. He's been throwing up these huge numbers. I had no idea he was shooting this poorly from three.
Yeah, I knew it was in the high 20s, but it's weird because the regular season, it felt like he was kind of coming on from three, hitting a lot of clutch threes, especially on that left side around the wing area. And now in the postseason, he's been kind of ice cold. He's also gone to this fadeaway jump shot a little bit more than we're accustomed to, and that's not something you want him to get into habit in. Especially, getting to the free throw line is important. And I think, we saw in this series, well, one thing we saw in this series, in this game one, the one-on-one defense from each side was completely different. Where the Celtics were able to kind of, win some one-on-ones defensively, on the Cavs side, it felt like every Celtics player was dusting every Cavs player and getting in the paint. Getting paint touches was not hard for the Celtics at all in this game.
No, and just you mentioned the one-on-one. This was the first time in a while too. I was watching the Cavs. They played a ton of isolation today. They really, the ball movement, the differential between the Celtics and Cavs was night and day. The Celtics, everyone was moving, constant flow in the offense, ball flying around. And on the Cavs side, I felt like everyone was, a one or two passes and then try and make a play. It wasn't a collective team effort at all.
Yeah, it wasn't a collective team effort. The Cavs were trying to get some of their mismatches. They weren't able to capitalize on them. And even when the Celtics got into the one-on-ones, they were dominating. Jaylen Brown couldn't really be defended by anybody on the Cavs today. Al Horford didn't miss a shot. Talking about that, who was the most impressive Celtics for you today? Which guys really stuck out?
I think for me, it's got to be Al Horford. 24 and 6, 2 blocks, 8 for 10 from the field, plus 17. And what always notices to me about or stands out to me about Horford is the fact that on defense too, he's their anchor. Someone else mentioned it. I think it was Justin Jett. He's kind of like Draymond Green. He's always talking on defense. He's always pointing out everything he sees, and I think that's huge, especially because we know the Celtics team is extremely young. They mentioned the stat that LeBron has more playoff game experience than the Celtics roster combined. So this is a very young, unproven team. And, they're just flourishing. And Al Horford, to me, is that, the veteran presence there. He leads the way. He's class personified. And his, that start, what do you have, 14 points on 5 of 5 shooting or 6 for 6 to start. He was just on fire. And I think that just really set the tempo.
Yeah, he really did set the tempo. And like you said, Justin Jett mentioned Draymond Green being a comparison in the sense that Al Horford is that anchor for the defense. He's just not quite as loud and doesn't get as many texts, so people don't notice and they complain about his contract. But for me, I'm going to go with another Celtics. I thought Jaylen Brown did a great job kind of being aggressive from the start, setting the mentality for the team, not only offensively, but defensively. There was one possession in the first half that really stuck out to me. Al Horford was coming over for some help on Jaylen Brown versus Kevin Love in the post. Brown pushed him away and said, I got this. Next play, Love misses the layup. Another play further down the line, Jaylen Brown got a block on Kevin Love in the post. If Jaylen Brown's going to play like this and get in the paint, he was 3 of 5 from three, kind of set this mentality for the team. It's exactly what they need for this young player.
Yeah, and also I have to give a shout out to Jason Tatum, a team high plus 27. 16 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 1 block. And that 3-pointer he had against J.R. Smith where he had, very little room to operate and he drained that right in his face. For a 20-year-old, that kid is for real. I can't wait to see how his game develops. But no one on this, unlike last series where the Raptors looked shook against the Cavs, this Celtics team does not give a damn who they're playing against.
Like you said, Al Horford set the tone too.
Yeah.
It's just having these guys, and like you said, Jason Tatum pulling up from three, hitting that shot. I felt like he was a little bit quiet in the first quarter, but then got into his groove. And his length and wingspan, I think, is going to be an issue for some of the Cavs' wings because they're not super big or super tall. And Jason Tatum honestly has a nice length, can handle the ball, and doesn't mind shooting over the top of people. Anybody else stick out for you? Marcus Smart?
Marcus Smart, defensively, you could always feel his presence. He had a nice steal, you mentioned earlier on LeBron. In 24 minutes, he still was a plus 16, so he played well. I think what stands out to me too is the fact that like Terry Rozier has been a big part of their offense, and he had a very poor night tonight shooting wise. Obviously he still had 8 assists, but he was 4 for 10 shooting, and he didn't look his best offensively. And you have to think, if you're the Celtics fan, you got to feel pretty good about that, because he's been one of your top 3 offensive options in the postseason, and he's struggling this first game. I just like it. I think the Celtics are in a really good place after winning this game.
And I think it helps, getting back on that point, being the young team, winning game 1 in this fashion gives them a lot of confidence, already kind of buying into that underdog mentality. I think it's good for them. On the Cavs side, really, is there anybody that stuck out and had a positive game?
No one had a good game. But what I can say is, in the 18 minutes that Rodney Hood was out there, he looked aggressive.
5 or 12.
Yeah, he shot 41%. Tristan Thompson too. Actually, they underutilized him this game. In 20 minutes he had 8 points, 11 rebounds. I actually liked the way the team was moving when he was on the floor. He was just being really tenacious on the boards, which is something I think they kind of lacked, especially in this game. The rebounding was 40 to 48. But those two guys to me were the only somewhat bright spots. Rodney Hood obviously denied coming into the game 4 and against the Raptors. He played a solid game tonight, and then Tristan Thompson.
Yeah, I think Hood's a guy it's really you want to keep an eye on, because he can actually play some defense and match up with these wings a little bit. So if they could get a positive offensive output from him, it'd be huge. And I think Tristan Thompson had a solid game. I felt him when he was in the game. He got in there. He was active on the boards. He felt like he was the only Cav really going for offensive rebounds, and he always plays with some decent energy. So he's a guy I think, got 20 minutes tonight. Obviously, we'll talk about adjustments a little later, but I'd like to see his minutes pick up in the series.
I think they're going to need to. If they're going to match, I like Kevin Love at the center position, but it's still not ideal. And Al Horford, he really took advantage of Kevin Love several times. It might have been in the first quarter where he got the ball in the low post, and he just toyed with Kevin Love for about 6 seconds till going for a reverse layup.
Yeah, he worked him to the other side of the rim. He started on one side of the rim,
Yeah.
and he posted him up so hard he got to a reverse layup. And Love was like out of the – he was out of contesting the shot just because he just bodied him so bad. And it's not like Al Horford's the biggest dude. So, I think a little of it's just on the Cavs and Love not having the effort down low. But worst Cav, which Cav really it's like, damn. Give me a couple, actually. There's obviously more than one, other than LeBron.
LeBron is the number one, because first off, they won't win a game if LeBron plays like this again. LeBron can't play like this if they're going to win any game. LeBron can't have 15 points. The last time I saw him have 15 points was in that finals against the Dallas Mavericks, where he struggled. But obviously he was bad. Kyle Korver, you mentioned it. He missed a ton of wide open threes. Kyle Korver, the last 2 series has been basically, ice in his veins. He's been hitting almost all of his threes. He's been the most consistent Cavalier, and tonight shots just weren't falling. So he was a disappointment. And Kevin Love. We saw Kevin Love pick it up too. And actually, in the first quarter, I liked how aggressive he was.
He started off well, got to the free throw line, 2 shots.
He was really aggressive to start. And I don't know if they just decided to stop giving him the ball. So he threw up a couple bad shots, but then the offense kind of went away from him. And then, late in the game, he just looked out of sorts himself. And then of course, J.R. Smith, 2 for 9. It's extremely frustrating to see him, go for 6 for 6 in that game 4 against the Raptors. And then tonight, he can't hit water. He fell out of the boat.
I think the most frustrating thing about JR is not only just a bad shooting night, but he started off cold and then he continued to take bad shots. And obviously in the past, it's something he's been able to get away with because he's been so talented and he's really been knocking it down. But this season, it hasn't been that case. And you're going to fade away, take one-legged jumpers and stuff like that. It's really not going to fly in the playoffs. And defensively, he really didn't do anything impressive. So 28 minutes almost seems like a lot for him. If Rodney Hood can pick it up and, play better, I would be, more elected to give Hood minutes if Smith's going to take the shots that he took tonight.
For sure. It was a bad collective effort on shot selection. The Cavs really, granted, when you go down 29-9 to start, their sense of urgency kind of kicks in. So I feel like they just started hoisting up shots because they felt that sense of urgency where we got to start hitting shots. I feel like they were just forcing the shots. And another thing I want to mention, George Hill, for as good of a defender as he's been, and you've been praising him for how he played, that game 7 against the Pacers and last series against the Raptors. they really abused him one-on-one, the Celtics defensively. They took it to him several times early in that first half.
I think what makes it so hard for the Cavs too is, George Hill's playing one-on-one defense, and if he's not getting any help, like most of these Cavs guys aren't going to be super plus defenders, and one of your better defenders is getting beat one-on-one, and you're not giving him any help, it's going to be a long one. Like fact just from this game is the Celtics were able to get in the paint a ton. Not only just for hitting shots and points in the paint, but it just felt like every possession they were getting a paint touch. And that didn't always necessarily lead to a layup, but it did lead to an open shot. And I think the rotations for the Cavs were just really lazy at times. And that's another thing. Their defense was bad. But getting back to Korver, if Korver's out there and he's only going to have 5 points and 1 of 5 from 3, and he's getting eaten alive on defense by Jaylen Brown, it's tough to play him too. It's just like the Cavs have a lot of interesting choices to make moving forward if guys aren't hitting their shots. It's like, do you make the hot take and you pull these guys early, or you just let them sit in there and hope that they start to heat up?
I mean, that's the struggle, right? It's one of the underlying issues with the Cavaliers is their best offensive players are their worst defensive players, and vice versa. There's no balance. They don't have a balance of guys who can play offense and guys who can also play defense. It's you have to give up one or the other, it feels like at times, and that's obviously something they have to address some way.
Yeah, especially when their shots aren't falling. But back to the play of LeBron, what do you think is going to change in game 2 for him? Is it going to be adjustments of them, game plan wise, or it's just going to be his mentality, or a combination of both?
I think it'd be a combination of both. I mean, I don't know if you noticed it, but he was playing a lot of off ball in that first half. George Hill was carrying the ball up a lot, and I get it. He's a point. George Hill is a point guard, so you want to give a different look, I think. But I see LeBron being extremely ball dominant in this game 2 to come. I just think he has to. He needs to set a tone. We saw even those last couple of games against Toronto. He wasn't aggressive to start off those games. He kind of sat back and let the offense come to him, and he kind of let everyone else get involved. And that's kind of how they try to start it off this game. But he's got to be aggressive. He's got to be the leader. He's got to be going out there with the mentality of I'm going to get mine, and hopefully these guys can give me something else in return.
Yeah, I think game 2 he's going to probably come out and try to set the tone early. Get to the rim and then maybe set the teammates up a little bit afterwards. But I think when the Celtics went on that first quarter run, I was expecting LeBron to take over a little bit and go on a little 10-0 run of himself, but that wasn't the case, and I think that needs to change in moving forward. And I think game plan wise, getting the ball in a little different situations, it will help a lot. Maybe some Tristan Thompson pick and roll, but if guys are hitting their shots, hitting their threes, I can't get on it enough, it's going to change the series because the spacing is going to change. No matter how good you are, if 5 guys are collapsing on the paint, it's going to be hard to get shots up.
No,
But
I agree.
Talking about changes, what's the biggest change the Cavs need to make in game 2?
I mean, we've danced around it. Points in the paint, right? You got to have some sort of rim protection. That's been one of the biggest issues for the Cavs. That's why they were linked to DeAndre Jordan most of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Tristan Thompson start game 2. If they go with Tristan, Kevin Love, that kind of formula. Because like you mentioned, Jaylen Brown had like 8 points in the paint in that first quarter to start off. They were just feasting. They got anything they wanted down low. As we mentioned, Kevin Love was getting bullied. So I think it's got to start with that. You want the Celtics to be a jump shooting team, I think. I think you'll be okay if you're the Cavs, letting Terry Rozier chuck up, 5 threes and Jaylen Brown. Obviously, they've been phenomenal. But I think you'd rather have them shooting jump shots and have them getting what they can in the paint and then getting those wide open threes.
Yeah, I mean, in most nights, the Celtics aren't going to shoot 51% from the field and 36% from 3 unless you're giving them a lot of open looks. Maybe the 3-point percentage is a lot more likable, but over 50% from the field, if you're playing mediocre defense, you should be able to kind of cut that out. Some of it is, some of the Celtics players are playing, out of their mind a little bit, which they've been doing a lot of this postseason. But, an issue is definitely the paint with Tristan Thompson having a physical presence. And I think you got to take a couple charges. If you're not going to have rim protection, you need to kind of force the refs to make a call in there. And then I think effort level. I think the biggest thing is they need to come out and play hard. Like this Celtics team is feisty. They're young. They're motivated. The Cavs need to realize like they're not going to give up this series. You're going to have to go take it from them. I think that's going to be huge. And overall effort too on defense. Rotations need to be there. One-on-one defense, you need to take some pride in keeping the guy in front of you. If you're, like you said, Kory, if you're forcing him into a jump shot or a contested jumper, you won that possession. If you're letting him get past you and get to the rim and get a layup in the paint, that's not a good possession defensively.
Yeah, and also I wanted to say, I just thought about this. Shout out to Brad Stevens too. I don't know if you remember, Marcus Morris got his second foul really early in that first quarter,
He kept
and
him
he
in.
and he kept him in, and that was a great decision. 'Cause I don't even think Marcus Morris finished with four fouls. I think he only had three. Yeah, he finished with three personal fouls. So after getting two quick ones, I think in the first 3 minutes, he only had one the rest of the game, and that was crucial. That was a great decision by Brad Stevens to leave him out there.
Yeah, and what he did is he swapped him off of LeBron at that point. They did get a couple more switches on him, but they went with Jaylen Brown and they put Marcus Morris on J.R. Smith. Like we mentioned, it was ice cold, so he was able to kind of stay on the floor, give some help defense in some occasions. And Marcus Morris also had a very nice scoring game: 21 points, 7 to 12 from the field, 3 of 4 from three. That's the type of stuff that they really need from him, especially in a series like this.
Yeah, oddly enough, Marcus Morris, who was talking trash yesterday, backed it up today and actually outplayed LeBron James in game one.
Which is something very rare that we did not expect. Other adjustments you expect to see in the next game moving forward? What about the bench plays? Jordan Clarkson, Rodney Hood, some of those guys are going to get some more burn. Is Larry Nance going to make an appearance?
I don't think Larry Nance is going to make an appearance. I don't think he's done enough to warrant an appearance. Even today in 4 minutes, he didn't do anything special to end that game. Jordan Clarkson, I did like his aggression in this game. He's a very aggressive player in general. He always is looking for his own shot. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more of him. Rodney Hood, I can definitely see us seeing more of him. I think they should get more of him. I liked what he had in those minutes. Obviously, he still finished with a -8 in those 18 minutes of his, but I liked his aggression, and I think the defensive ability he has. I think that would be a plus, especially with how obviously we mentioned how hot the Celtics were shooting wise this game. And
Yeah.
Jeff Green too, who was really hot in the Raptors series. He only saw 19 minutes tonight, which I'm not sure if there was just they attacked the game plan differently. But I think we're going to see more Jeff Green too in game two.
And I'd like to see Jeff Green because he at least has some size to match up with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum a little bit, where some of, a J.R. Smith or Kyle Korver is really going to be outmatched physically and lengthwise. So I agree. Rodney Hood, if he can play decent in game two and earn himself some more minutes, the only problem I have with Jordan Clarkson, like he has a great ability to get to the rim, but he has a problem keeping his head up. It's like he's in this score mentality where he doesn't want to pass the ball. It's like a Kobe mindset, but he's not even half as talented.
Yeah, too much time to the Lakers, right?
I guess, yeah, it wore off on him. Any other big rotation changes you expect to see from the Cavs? How many more minutes do you think we'll see from Tristan Thompson? Only 20 minutes in game one.
I mean, I think maybe I don't think he's gonna get a ton more, but I think we'll see maybe like 25. Think about it. In 20 minutes, he had 8 and 11. That's good. I'll take that in 20 minutes. But I just think he needs to be out there to start the game. I think it would have been a different impact if he had that energy to start off the game, especially with how we saw Al Horford bullying Kevin Love to start. Because even though Tristan Thompson isn't a tremendous defender, I think he would have been more of a challenge for Al Horford early on than Kevin Love.
Yeah, and there was a couple of rebounds that are kind of out in the open that maybe the Cavs could have grabbed offensively and defensively. I know the Celtics didn't have a lot of offensive rebounds, but they didn't really put in the effort, and I feel like Tristan Thompson was out there. He would have grabbed them. I'd like to see Thompson closer to 30 minutes than 20 minutes. I think he can have an impact, like you said, not only physically, defensively, but on the boards, getting in there, getting those tips, and the energy is important. Starting him should be something Ty Lue should consider.
Yeah, and even some rim protection. They only had 3 blocks tonight. LeBron with 2 and Kyle Korver with 1. So realistically, they probably only had 2 because Kyle Korver getting 1 is that's not a likely thing to continue. So I think he also can form some sort of rim protection aside from LeBron on help defense.
And we didn't even mention the fact that he's one of the best screen setters on the Cavs, so maybe opening up some more looks. I don't think the Cavs are going to shoot this bad from three again. It would be very unlikely for them to go 4 of 26. You think about it this way. They make 8 more threes or something like that, maybe something more like 12 of 26 or in that 10 range. It's a little bit different game, especially at halftime, because I believe they didn't hit their first three until the third quarter. And it was a Korver contested three.
Yeah, and just mention that third quarter. That third quarter, we mentioned this on the preview. The Celtics have a tendency for their offense to go kind of cold. The third quarter was the one quarter the Celtics were rather cold in. They
Yeah,
weren't ice cold, but they had slowed down. In the Cavs, they cut the lead down to what, 16 to end that quarter?
I believe 14-point game at the end of that quarter. The Cavs won the third 29-17, and they showed some energy. But the best thing I think from the Celtics this entire game was how they start off the fourth, and that was an 18-4 run. And that pretty much slammed the door on any type of comeback because say the Cavs come out, they go on a 6-0 run, and it's an 8-point game, I think we're probably having a different discussion right now. The Celtics might have won, but it would have been a lot closer fashion than what we saw in the fourth quarter in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, with like 4 minutes left in the third quarter, I was texting some buddies of mine. I was saying, this game's over. It's pretty much wrapped up. And then, the end of the third, I was like, oh, wow, we got a game again. And then within, 3 minutes or 4 minutes going into the fourth quarter, I was like, all right, the game's over again. It was just that quick of a change of events.
Yeah, and I think, the Cavs can take something positive from that. I don't think, they're going to shoot and score only 20 points in a quarter again. For them Cavs perspective, yeah, we played pretty bad. We didn't show up. In the Celtics perspective, we played really good. So that leads me to my next question. Was this the worst game the Cavs will play in the series, and is it the best game the Celtics will play in the series?
I don't know if it's the worst game the Cavs will play. Actually, yeah. This is the worst game the Cavs will play. And I mean that because I don't think LeBron will play this bad again. I'm not saying the supporting cast will play, as bad again, because they very well may. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do play bad again. But I don't see LeBron playing this poorly again. And for the Celtics, I think we're going to see this again, at least a couple more times. I think the Celtics team is really feeling themselves. We mentioned how big confidence is in the NBA. The Celtics are just overflowing with confidence right now.
Now, when you say you expect to see this again, do you expect to see around the same thing or even a higher level, or this is probably like the peak best game they can play?
I think they can play better. I really do, because we saw guys like Marcus Morris having a big offensive, contributing 21 points and 10 rebounds. Tatum only had 16 points. Jason Tatum's been their best offensive scorer throughout the playoffs. I definitely think their offense can pick it up to another level.
I would say I expect maybe they could play slightly better, but the 50% from the field, 36% from three, they did a great job taking care of the ball, won the battle on the boards. I think this is probably as good as they can probably play. And the Cavs, like you said, this is probably as bad as LeBron will play. The supporting cast is a different question. But if LeBron drops, 28, 10, and, it's not really as bad a game. So I expect I don't know if do you think this will be the biggest blowout of the series, or we could see another blowout?
I mean,
a bigger blowout, actually,
I'm gonna say yeah, because the Pacers beat the Cavs by 30, and the Pacers don't have as many offensive weapons as the Celtics do. So if the Pacers can win 127-87, I don't see why the Celtics couldn't have another big offensive game. We saw the 28th ranked defensive Cavaliers tonight. This is the Cavaliers defense that was terrible all year. This is what we've seen. If they're not clicking and they're not engaged, they can give up 20, 30 points and, have a 20, 30-point deficit just like that. This is the third game in the postseason. They've lost by 15-plus points. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another double-digit loss by the Cavs.
What are your expectations for Game 2?
Expectations is LeBron's going to drop 40-plus. I don't know if they're going to win. It depends if anyone else wants to show up and help him. But I know for a fact LeBron's going to get his. I've watched LeBron too much and too often to see him have another bad performance like this in back-to-back games.
30-point triple-double seems like a likely scenario for Game 2?
I'd say yeah, because yeah, for sure.
If you had to pick one Cav that you need to see step up for Game 2, not named Kevin Love, who would it be?
It's a toss. It's got to be a shooter. So for me, it's a toss-up between Kyle Korver and J.R. Smith. When the Cavs have been winning games this postseason, it's when they've had three-point shooting. And when they've been at their best, it's when Kyle Korver and J.R. Smith are hitting threes. So I think one of those guys has to be shooting, above 40% from three for them to even remotely be an efficient team offensively.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably Korver or J.R. Smith hitting the shot. I'd say probably, dark horse Rodney Hood. Like we mentioned, he's a guy that could possibly get into the series after not playing much. George Hill probably could pick it up a little bit too, but he's not really going to give you a ton. If I give you another dark horse, actually, I'm switching my pick completely and I changed my mind. Jeff Green. Give me Jeff Green in Game 2 as a guy that needs to step up and have big minutes. 19 minutes, like I said, I like his versatility defensively. If he can knock down the three ball, he's also proven, even against the Celtics this year, he's had a couple big dunks off of cuts when they've double-teamed LeBron. So he seems to have a little bit of an understanding. I think Jeff Green really needs to pick it up. And that's, something that's been said about Jeff Green his whole career.
Yeah, right.
On the Celtics side, what do you think needs to change for Game 2, if anything, or just kind of come out with the same game plan and just react to what the Cavs do?
I think you just play your game. I I don't think you worry about it. I think what you do the same thing. You play, you give LeBron a ton of different looks. You throw a bunch of different guys at him. You move the ball and you attack the paint. I don't think you change anything. I think what you do is you say to the Cavaliers, we're going to pretty much do the same exact thing. Stop us.
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably going to tinker some things. Obviously Brad Stevens is going to see something that didn't work and probably toss them out. But overall, there's not much you need to change. Obviously, you're not going to shoot that high of a percentage of 50% probably again. But if you're hitting the paint hard and you're being aggressive down there, and then it helps space the floor for your shooters and they're hitting shots. To me, like I was mentioning, Terry Rozier didn't have a big offensive game tonight, and I don't see that happening again. He's been a steady 16 to 17 point guy a night for them these playoffs. So I think for the Celtics, you're just going to stick with what you're doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think you stick with what you're doing. If the Cavs start to hit their three, some of these role players step up, you react. But for now, make some minor adjustments, some things to really clean up. But other than that, I think they should be in pretty good shape moving into game two. You got any predictions for game two?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Celtics win. I'm gonna say Celtics win, but LeBron drops a triple double.
I'm gonna go. I think if the Celtics win game two, that I am really leaning towards the Celtics in this series. I think that would be a big boost for them, considering they have home court. I believe they haven't lost a game at home this postseason, so I think that it's a must. It's almost a must win for the Cavs in a sense. And I think you don't want to let this young squad get any more confidence. So I'm going to go with Cavs, and I agree with the LeBron triple double. I think Kevin Love's going to step up and hit some more shots, maybe get some more adjustments, and then one of the shooters is going to step in. One of these random role bench players is going to have a bigger game because I really don't think they all can play this bad again. Like the Cavs played really bad. The Celtics played really good. The Cavs were ice cold from shooting wise. I don't think that's all going to happen again in game two. If it does, then we know a little bit more about these teams than we did before.
Yeah, for sure. I gotta try and keep my Cavs in 7 down 3-2 prediction alive. So
I
I
think
had to go with the
if
Celtics.
that does happen, I mean that's the most likely scenario. If the Celtics do win game two, going down 3-2 is a real possibility, assuming that the Cavs go back to Cleveland, win two, Celtics win game five at home again, then you're looking at 3-2.
Yeah.
But that wraps it up for today. As always, Kory, thank you for hopping on. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Like I mentioned earlier, we're doing game recaps for all the Eastern Conference Finals games, Western Conference Finals games, and obviously for the NBA Finals. But thank you, and check us out on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, OTGBasketball.com, and Google Play.
Cheers.